Hello, I'm Alan Seale from the Center for Transformational Presence. And today we're talking about a tool or a framework called the Deep Simple. I created this tool for those moments or those circumstances or situations where what's going on is so enormous, it's so big, or so many layers of complexity that you have no idea where to begin. In fact, it's also a tool to help us get past that question, how? Because so many of us have been conditioned that we can't take a step forward until we know how we're going to do what we're going to do, or we know the path to get there, or we know the method. And in fact, in today's world, working in the many layers of complexity that are going on right now, we rarely know how. How is something that we will learn and discover as we go along. We're not going to know ahead of time. So actually, as we begin this talking about the Deep Simple, I invite you to, every time you get caught with that question, how, which can be paralyzing, how are we going to do that? How can we possibly take those steps? How can we possibly create that? When you come to that question, how, what if you replace it with, so what's the next step? Because that's what the Deep Simple is actually all about. It's about taking the enormous complexity and cutting through to the essence as quickly as possible to simply find a next step, to pay attention to what wants to happen, the message that's trying to come through, who's it asking us to be, what's it asking us to do. There are 3 questions, again, buried right in the Deep Simple. And so the Deep Simple is just 5 questions. When you have that question, how, replace it with what's our next step, and then come to the Deep Simple. The first question is, so what are 3 things I know to be true about what's going on right now? Now, this is not necessarily true with a capital T. It's not the big truths, but simply what's true for you right now. Maybe one of those things is, I'm incredibly frustrated. Okay, that's one thing you know to be true right now. Maybe another thing that you know to be true is, I think my boss is just as lost as I am. Okay? That's another thing you know to be true. And maybe the third is, this team has to find a whole new way to talk to each other. Okay? That's a third thing you know to be true. So you see, it can be anything. And then of those 3 things, here's question number 2. Of those 3 things you know to be true, which one holds the power for us to talk about right now? Now notice the question is not, which one do you want to talk about? But rather, which one holds the power? Which one is kind of holding you hostage? Or which one feels like, that's the one I'm afraid of right now. That's the one I'm kind of shying away from. Which one holds the power for us to work with right now? And then the third question is, for that thing that holds the power, what wants to shift there? What's the message that's trying to come through? What's trying to get our attention right now? And then the fourth question, so with that shift that wants to happen, the message that's trying to come through, who's it asking me to be? How's it asking me to show up? What role is it asking me to take? What's my part in helping to facilitate that shift? And then the fifth question is, so what is one step that we can take today, or that I can take today, to begin moving towards that shift? Now notice it's not what is one step that I can take that will solve the issue or get us all the way to the end. It's just what is one step that we can take today that moves us towards the shift that wants to happen. So it simplifies it in an incredible way, yet it's also cutting through. It's the Deep Simple. We're cutting through to the essence of what's going on and finding just a next step. So let's turn this into a little mini coaching session and take something that's going on for you. When you need some extra time, just press pause on the recording and then take the time you need to answer that question or whatever, and then press play again and we'll move ahead. So first, take a moment and choose a situation or a topic, a circumstance, a project, something that for you right now is so big that you just don't know where to begin. Take a moment. Choose your topic. And then we come to the first question. So what are 3 things that you know to be true about this right now? Remember, it's not true with a capital T. It's just 3 things that are true for you right now. Press pause if you need some time. Now, of those three things that you know to be true, which one actually holds the power right now? Which one is saying, I need to look at this? And then with that thing that holds the power, what's wanting to shift there? Or what's the message that's trying to get your attention? Or what's the breakthrough that's just ready to happen? There's something that wants to shift with that thing that holds the power. And then the fourth question. So with that shift that wants to happen, what's your part in that? What role is it asking you to play? How's it asking you to show up? Who's it asking you to be? What's your part in this shift? And then finally, the last question. So what is one step that you can take today that begins to move you towards that shift? Now, notice again, it's not what's one step that you can take that solves the whole situation or comes to an end point, but simply what is one step that I can take today to move towards the shift that's wanting to happen? And then today, take that step. Begin to move closer to the shift that wants to happen. And after you've taken that shift, that step, then come back to the first question again. So now that I've taken this step, maybe things have shifted a little bit. Now what are three things I know to be true? And you begin moving through the deep simple again. So just like the three questions, the deep simple is designed to help you step by step by step find your way through whatever the circumstance or the situation, whatever it is that's going on that feels so big, I don't know where to start. You know, it's interesting now that I've been using this tool a lot, and it's actually one of the most powerful tools in transformational presence because it is helping us break things down to such simple steps. I've also found it to be a very powerful tool to use at the end of a meeting or at the end of a coaching session or at the end of a conversation with someone to wrap up the session by saying, so what are three things that we know now after this meeting? Three things that are getting our attention to move forward. There's a fly that just keeps wanting to be right here with me all the time in the deep simple. And so what are three things that we know as we wrap up this session? And then of those three things, which one holds the power for me, or which one is calling out to me to pay attention to before we meet again? And whatever that is that's calling out to me, so what's wanting to shift with that? What wants to happen with that before we meet the next time? And then who's that asking me to be? How's it asking me to show up? What's my role in that shift? What is the part it's asking me to play going forward? And then we come to the last question. So what's one step that I can take today to begin moving towards that shift? So now whether if you're in a team meeting, suddenly everybody has their assignment, or if it's a one-on-one coaching session, then the client now has a sense of, here's my next step. Or if it's just a conversation or a meeting that you're having with one other person, it's becoming clear now, what are we taking out of this meeting? What are our next steps? The deep simple, just 5 very simple questions that will take you very deep, very fast. One clue when you're working with the deep simple is to go straight through the questions. It's very easy, especially if you're coaching or if you're a team leader, you're working with your people, it's very easy to get lost in something that's said, to get kind of seduced in, oh, tell me more about that. Don't do it, because that will keep you from cutting through to the essence. Go through the 5 questions. And then when you get to the answer to question number 5, and you know this is the step that we need to take today, Now our work begins, and you start to move forward. So play with the deep simple, see all the different ways that you can apply it in your work and in your service, and I'll talk to you the next time. Bye for now.